At its height, one nation controlled a quarter of the planet, 26% of Earth's land, 412 million people, nearly a quarter of humanity. The sun literally never set on British territory because at any moment, somewhere in the empire, it was day. This is the story of the largest empire in human history, how it rose, how it dominated, and why it fell. From a small island nation to a global superpower controlling 13.7 million square miles across 6 continents, this is the British Empire. Let's begin. Britain's imperial journey began modestly in 1583, when Sir Humphrey Gilbert claimed Newfoundland for Queen Elizabeth I. But the real power came from trade, specifically the East India Company, founded in 1600. This wasn't just a business. It was a corporation with its own army, its own navy, and eventually, its own territories. The key to British expansion? Naval supremacy. In 1588, Britain defeated the Spanish Armada. This wasn't just a battle, it was a changing of the guard. Spain's naval dominance ended. Britain's began. For the next 300 years, the Royal Navy would rule the waves. By the 1700s, Britain had more warships than any other nation. By 1850, they had more than the next 10 nations combined. The 7 Years' War was essentially World War II fought across 4 continents. Britain won, taking French territories in North America and India. At the Treaty of Paris in 1763, Britain became the world's foremost colonial power. Then came a setback, the American Revolution. 13 colonies declared independence in 1776, and Britain lost them by 1,783. But here's the thing Britain barely noticed. While losing America, they were gaining India, Australia, and territories across Asia and Africa. Captain Cook claimed Australia in 1770. The East India Company controlled massive territories in India. British traders dominated global commerce. In 1805, Admiral Nelson defeated Napoleon's fleet at Trafalgar, cementing British naval supremacy. In 1815, Wellington defeated Napoleon at Waterloo, ending France as a rival. By 1815, Britain stood alone as the world's dominant superpower, and they were just getting started. The 19th century was Britain's century. This era, called Pax Britannica, or British peace, saw Britain dominate global politics, economics, and culture for nearly 100 years. Queen Victoria, who reigned from 1837 to 1901, presided over this golden age. In 1876, she was declared Empress of India, the crown jewel of the British Empire. But Britain's power wasn't just military, it was industrial. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain. Steam engines, railways, telegraph, steel production. Britain invented or perfected most of it. By 1850, they were the workshop of the world, and the rest of the world bought British. India was the empire's most valuable possession, 300 million people and immense wealth. But that relationship was built on exploitation. When Indian soldiers rebelled in 1857, the Sepoy Rebellion, Britain crushed it brutally. In 1858, the British government took direct control, establishing the British Raj. For the next 90 years, Britain would extract billions in wealth from India while millions of Indians lived in poverty. Then came the scramble for Africa. In 1880, European powers controlled just 10% of Africa. By 1914, they controlled 90%. Britain took the largest share: Egypt, Sudan, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and more. At the Berlin Conference of 1884, European powers literally drew lines on a map, dividing Africa among themselves. No Africans were invited. But Africa wasn't enough. Britain fought 2 opium wars with China, forcing them to accept British opium trade. When China lost, Britain took Hong Kong in 1842. The Suez Canal opened in 1869, and Britain quickly gained control, cutting travel time to India from months to weeks. By 1900, Britain controlled strategic choke points worldwide: Gibraltar, Malta, Singapore, the Cape of Good Hope. Control these points, and you control global trade. At its peak, the British Empire covered 13.71 million square miles. That's 26% of Earth's land. It was the largest empire in human history, and it's not even close. But this story has another side, one that's often uncomfortable to discuss. The British Empire was built on exploitation and violence. Let's be clear, they conquered these lands, often brutally. Before abolition in 1807, Britain was the world's largest slave trader, transporting over 3 million enslaved Africans. Many died during the voyage. In Ireland, The potato famine of 1845 killed 1 million people while Britain continued exporting food from the country. In India, repeated famines killed tens of millions. The Bengal famine of 1943 alone killed 3 million people. The British invented concentration camps during the Boer War in South Africa, where thousands of women and children died. In 1919, at Amritsar in India, British troops fired on an unarmed crowd, killing hundreds. Beyond the violence, Britain systematically extracted wealth from its colonies. In India alone, Britain drained an estimated $45 trillion in today's money over 200 years. They destroyed local industries to eliminate competition and imposed English language and education systems, suppressing local cultures. They drew arbitrary borders that ignored ethnic boundaries, causing conflicts that continue today. Understanding the empire's legacy means understanding both its achievements and its crimes. Both are real. Both matter. The empire that took 300 years to build would collapse in just 50. World War I was the beginning of the end. Britain left the war victorious but broken. The economic cost was staggering, and Britain was in debt to the United States for the first time. Colonial subjects who fought for Britain began asking, if we're good enough to die for the empire, why aren't we good enough to govern ourselves? Then came World War II. Britain survived, but barely. By 1945, the nation was economically exhausted. Two new superpowers had emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. Britain was now a secondary power. Across the empire, independence movements were gaining unstoppable momentum. In India, Gandhi's nonviolent resistance had captured the world's attention. In 1947, India and Pakistan gained independence. The crown jewel of the empire was gone. Then the floodgates opened. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, African colonies gained independence one by one. The Suez Crisis of 1956 was the final humiliation. When Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal, Britain invaded, but the United States ordered them to withdraw. And they did. The empire was effectively over. In 1997, Britain handed Hong Kong back to China. 400 years of imperial history ended not with a bang, but with a flag being lowered. So what remains? The Commonwealth of Nations is the obvious answer, but the legacy goes deeper. English is the global language because of British imperialism. Many former colonies retain British legal systems and parliamentary democracy. British sports like cricket and football are played globally, but the legacy is also economic and political. Many former colonies still struggle with borders drawn by British officials. And there's the question of artifacts. The British Museum holds millions of objects taken from colonies, and countries like Egypt and India have demanded their return. How we teach this history is also debated. In Britain, it's often taught with pride. In former colonies, it's taught as a period of exploitation. Both narratives have truth. What's clear is that the British Empire shaped the modern world more than any other single force. Borders, languages, political systems all bear its mark. From a small island nation to controlling a quarter of the earth, the British Empire was the largest in human history. It spread the English language and common law systems worldwide. It also caused immense suffering and exploited billions. It fell because of 2 world wars, economic exhaustion, and the inevitable desire of people everywhere to govern themselves. We're living in a world that's totally shaped by the British Empire, right? Just think about it, from the borders on maps to the language you're hearing right now. It's wild how much influence it still has today. We're living in a world that's totally shaped by the British Empire, right? Just think about it, from the borders on maps to the language you're hearing right now. It's wild how much influence it still has today. If you found this little nugget of history interesting, make sure to subscribe for more awesome insights.